What can a 21-year-old really achieve? Maybe get a degree, start a new job, or plan a future. But what if I told you that at just 21, one young man changed the course of world history forever? This is the story of a vision so powerful it moved mountains, and a will so strong it broke down walls that had stood for 1,000 years. This is the story of Sultan Mehmed the Conqueror. The year is 1451. A young, determined sultan ascends the Ottoman throne. His eyes are fixed on a prize that has eluded his ancestors for generations. The magnificent, impenetrable city of Constantinople, the heart of the Byzantine Empire. For centuries, its massive walls had repelled every invader. It was considered the queen of cities, a fortress blessed by God. But Mehmed saw not just a city, but a symbol. To conquer it was to fulfill a prophecy and reshape the world. His first move was a masterpiece of strategy.
Just across the Bosphorus Strait from an old Ottoman fortress, he ordered the construction of a new one, Rumeli Hyzer, or the Castle of Europe.
In just 4 months, a massive fortress rose from the ground, its cannons aimed directly at the strait. This wasn't just a building. It was a statement. Mehmed now controlled the narrow waterway, cutting off Constantinople from any potential naval aid from the Black Sea. The city was slowly being strangled, and the world watched, holding its breath. But building a castle was the easy part. The real challenge lay in the city's legendary defenses. The Theodosian walls were a triple-layered marvel of military engineering that had stood for a millennium. Many had tried to breach them, all had failed. Mehmed knew that a conventional attack was doomed. He needed something different, something no one had ever imagined. He gathered the greatest minds of his time, engineers, strategists, and scholars. He spent sleepless nights poring over maps, calculating angles, and debating tactics. His vision was not just to conquer, but to do so with such genius that it would echo through eternity. He wasn't just a sultan, he was an architect of the impossible. One of his most audacious ideas came from a Hungarian engineer named Orban. Orban offered to build a cannon larger than anything the world had ever seen. A true monster of bronze and fire, capable of hurling massive stone balls that could shatter walls like glass. While others hesitated at the cost and complexity, Mehmed embraced the idea. He poured resources into the project, and soon the Great Turkish Bombard was born. It was so massive, it took 60 oxen and hundreds of men to move it. This was not just a weapon, it was a symbol of Mehmed's unwavering ambition. But even with giant cannons, there was another obstacle. A massive chain stretched across the mouth of the Golden Horn, the city's natural harbour. This chain blocked the Ottoman navy from attacking the city's weaker sea walls. The Byzantine defenders felt secure behind this barrier. They believed their navy was safe. They were wrong. This is where Mehmed's genius truly shone.
If he couldn't sail his ships into the harbor, he would move them overland.
Yes, you heard that right. Overland. His engineers laid a path of greased wooden logs stretching for miles over the hills of Galata. And then, under the cover of darkness, in one of the most incredible feats in military history, his army began to drag dozens of warships, sails unfurled, out of the water and up the steep hills. Imagine the sight for the defenders of Constantinople the next morning. They woke up to see an entire Ottoman fleet floating in their supposedly secure harbour. The psychological shock was immense. It was as if the Sultan had bent the laws of nature to his will. The impossible had happened. The siege was now on. The final test had begun. The air thundered with the roar of Orban's giant cannon. Day after day it pounded the ancient walls, sending shockwaves through the city. Each impact was a hammer blow against the morale of the defenders. The ground shook, buildings crumbled, and the once mighty walls began to show cracks. But the Byzantines were resilient. Led by their brave emperor, Constantine V, and a small but determined force of Genoese and Venetian allies, they fought back with everything they had. They repaired the walls at night, launched counterattacks, and prayed for a miracle. The siege dragged on for weeks. It was a brutal, bloody affair. The Ottomans launched wave after wave of attacks, but the defenders held firm. Doubts began to creep into the Ottoman camp. Was the city truly unconquerable? Was this all for nothing? The pressure on the young sultan was immense. His entire future, the fate of his empire, rested on this single battle. Yet, Mehmed's resolve never wavered. He rode among his troops, his voice ringing with conviction, reminding them of the glory and destiny that awaited them. He reminded them of the prophecy. The final test was at hand. He knew he had one last chance. He planned a massive, all-out assault from land and sea, a final decisive push to break the city. On the night of May 28, 1453, the Ottoman camp fell silent. The soldiers prayed, rested, and prepared for the dawn. Inside the city, a somber mood prevailed. The emperor led his people in a final mass at the magnificent Hagia Sophia. Christians of all denominations, who had been divided for centuries, prayed together as one. They knew what was coming. The final test was upon them all. At the first light of dawn on May 29th, the attack began. The sound was deafening. Thousands of drums, trumpets, and war cries filled the air. The great cannons roared, unleashing their final fury. The Ottoman army surged forward in 3 massive waves. The first wave was thrown back. The second wave, too, met fierce resistance. But they had tired the defenders. Then came the third wave, the elite Janissaries, Mehmed's personal guard. They advanced with disciplined fury, ignoring the chaos around them. At a small, unguarded gate, the Kirka Porta, a small group of Janissaries managed to slip through and raise the Ottoman flag on the walls. At the same time, the giant cannon scored a direct hit, creating a massive breach in the main wall. The Janissaries poured through. The cry went up, "The city is taken!" Panic seized the defenders. The lines broke. The 1,000-year empire was falling. Emperor Constantine the XVIII, seeing all was lost, threw off his royal insignia and charged into the fray, fighting and dying alongside his men. A noble end for the last Roman emperor. The walls had been breached. The prophecy was fulfilled. Sultan Mehmed rode into the city not as a vengeful destroyer, but as a conqueror with a vision for the future. He immediately ordered his troops to cease the plunder. He rode straight to the Hagia Sophia. As he entered the grand cathedral, he was overcome by its beauty. He dismounted, knelt, and sprinkled a handful of dirt on his turban, a gesture of humility before God. He declared that the building would be preserved and converted into a mosque, a symbol of his victory. But he did not stop there. He issued a proclamation of tolerance, guaranteeing the lives, property, and freedom of worship for the Christian citizens of the city. He invited people who had fled to return, promising them safety and security. This was not the act of a mere warrior. It was the act of a statesman. He wanted to rule a vibrant, multicultural capital, not a pile of ruins. The fall of Constantinople was not just the end of one empire and the beginning of another. It was a turning point in world history. It marked the end of the Middle Ages and signaled the dawn of the Renaissance. Scholars fleeing the city brought ancient Greek knowledge with them to Europe, fueling a new age of learning and discovery. The old trade routes were now controlled by the Ottomans, forcing European powers to seek new sea routes to the east, leading directly to the age of exploration. All of this was set in motion by the vision of one 21-year-old man.
Sultan Mehmed II, now known as Mehmed the Conqueror, showed the world that with unbreakable will, brilliant strategy,
And a vision that dares to achieve the impossible. You can not only move fleets over mountains, but you can also change the map of the world forever. Thank you for watching. If this story inspired you, please like, share, and subscribe for more chapters from history.